delighted today to welcome Celine Schillinger for an interview on anything to do about leadership in the post-pandemic world. So welcome, Celine. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Vlatka. The honor is for me, and I'm so delighted to have this opportunity to reconnect and have the conversation with you again.
Yes, Celine was one of the interviewees for my book, Humane Capital, but so much has happened since we spoke a few years ago. Yes. And I think it's a great opportunity to catch up with you, see what you're up to now, what you're doing. So perhaps we can start just by you telling us a little bit about you. Who are you?
Yes, wonderful. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a change practitioner and a consultant. I have been a consultant for 3 years. And before that, I have a long field experience in small, medium, and large corporations in various roles, but mostly linked to business and change. And that experience around the world on various continents informed me about the difficulties of change in organizations, but also the opportunities, what is possible, and not just from a theoretical standpoint, but for real, in action, especially with, the shop floor, with distant sites where things seem difficult. And too often organizations fall into known recipes, which I feel, and I know you agree, are obsolete and don't work so well anymore.
Right, wonderful. And there is a fantastic interview with you in Humane Capital, and I quote it very often when I teach, saying, you are so powerful because with one single email, like Celine, you can create those big ripples that can impact hundreds of thousands of people. So that was a fantastic story.
It's exactly the term, the right term. It's the ripple effect. And I think it doesn't always work when you try to achieve that directly. It's more when you're moved by purpose and you don't try to instrumentalize people, but when you do something because you truly believe in it, and there's this authenticity that may be a magnet for other people's purpose as well. That's what happened.
I absolutely agree with you. Yes, when you're doing by purpose, then those ripples spread wide.
Yes. Yeah.
Wonderful. Now, I wanted to ask you, what triggered your interest in leadership?
So my interest in leadership was triggered by originally a frustration in making things happen faster and more in a more innovative way. And I felt that leadership was a barrier. Originally, first of all, I didn't think too much about leadership in the first years of my journey into the business world, but progressively, I saw it as a barrier, which was only half of the story, because leadership is not just a barrier. It is a powerful enabler in certain conditions with a certain mindset, as you rightfully noted in your books. But my first real, the frustration I felt at some point provided me with grounds for questioning the system and questioning my role in the system as well. And I felt in negative conditions, leadership is switching off. It switches off the creativity and the willingness to contribute of people. It's crazy because we hire, as organizations, we hire wonderful, talents, but then once they're in, we switch them off and treat them like children and distrust them and create walls between them. And it's such a loss of human potential. So that was the original feeling that triggered this questioning process, which is still going on. I still don't have an answer, but I have provided I have experimented ways through which I have observed different effects. And so I'm interested in learning more about these different effects and what creates them and what's possible. A lot of things is possible, actually.
It's all limitless.
Yes,
And we
yes,
are
exactly.
level 5.
Yes,
There's no end to possibilities.
yes, correct. And I feel the company, the organizations should not be considered in isolation either. You spoke about ripple effects. Creating good work, good collective work that is respectful of people, that is creating, real value for everybody, not just for a few, has ripple effects on society. And a lot of our societal problems may, that's my hypothesis, they may stem from the world of work, which is creating frustration, division, a sense of not being respected. So we cannot consider the business world or the organizational world in isolation from society. I think the frontier is really porous. So the more we improve what happens in our organizations, the more we improve, we contribute to improving society.
Completely agree, because leaders create ripples that spread to their teams, to
Yeah.
organizations, and then organizations spread ripples to society.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, what was your perspective on leadership when you worked in a large organization?
So at first I was very respectful, and I felt honored to be in the company of senior leaders, and some of them were not mentors, but inspiring figures. And then progressively, as I got to gain experience and see the dark side of leadership, I sort of lost my innocence, I think, and started to see leaders as they are. They are human beings with their failures, as every one of us, I think. And but at some point in time, I think I saw things with a very black and white approach. There were the good ones and the bad ones, and I have fortunately evolved a little bit from that. I think we are all the bad one of somebody else. It's a matter of judgment, and in fact, judgment. I mean, who we are is not really that important, because again, it's a matter of judgment. What's more important is what we do, and what we and how we honestly, genuinely, authentically can try our best for real to improve collective performance, to improve how we work together, how the human collective at work can operate harmoniously in an atmosphere of benevolence. It doesn't mean that conflict must be avoided at all cost. Conflict is natural when there are so many different perspectives and expectations, etc. But there are ways to deal with conflict that can avoid winning over others or losing against others. That's something that Mary Parker Follett described very well 100 years ago. She said, victory means one party loses over another. Compromise means both parties lose a little bit of their original idea. Instead, what we should strive for is integration. From different ideas, make another one that integrates that. So it's a little bit idealistic, but why not? Why couldn't we try that? So yeah, that's a long answer to a short question. I'm sorry.
No, it's a wonderful answer. I completely agree, because when you integrate, you use the principle of synergy. 1 + 1 = 3. And
exactly.
very important. And then it becomes win-win-win for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So has your perspective changed since you became a consultant?
Yes, a little bit. Um, it has changed a little bit in the sense that I realized that the issues I was dealing with in the company I stayed for a very long time, 17 years, were not specific to that company. Were not even specific to that sector of business. Uh, you could have felt that because I used to work in the pharmaceutical industry, which was very constrained, very regulated, lots of norms, and for good reasons, because the products that are coming out of the pharma industry are life-saving products or injected into people, etc. So they got to be absolutely perfect. So that's why there's all these regulations. But that amount of rules has actually permeated mindsets and made people very reluctant to change. Change is a sort of an enemy because change introduces uncertainty, variations, and so there's a natural reluctance to change, which in turn brings other problems because then you get a very conservative industry, and the diversity, the pace of the world is has become too fast for this kind of very conservative mindset to be maintained. So it's complicated, but I have realized that it's complicated everywhere. In fact, uh, and that some of the same recipes produce poor results everywhere. And the size doesn't even matter so much. There's a sort of natural tendency to default to the leader as the savior or as the hero, as someone who is above others. All these sort of obsolete approaches, which I think are not great. I had a conversation with a senior leader at a large French company recently, and she was complaining about the difficulty of finding good leaders. She said, "Oh, it's so difficult to find good leaders nowadays." And I was like, really? Really, that's interesting, because it was as if she compared leadership with a gold nugget that should be found in a pool of mud. But of course, if you try to find little gold nuggets in a pool of mud, then maybe you will search for a very long time and find very, very few of them. But what if you transform the pool of mud in a pool of gold? What if leadership is not a rare, hero-like sort of competency, but something that can be cultivated and nurtured in everybody, and that's where I think we create much more potential, limitless, as you said, limitless potential for organizations.
Oh, this is wonderful, because what you described, when we have this mud and few golden nuggets, this is levels 1, 2, 3, according to the management shift. And when we go to level 4 and occasionally level 5, we transform the mud to golden nuggets pool.
Exactly.
So, yeah. I love the analogy. I will cite you for that. So I wanted to ask you, why did you name your blog and then your company We Need Social?
Oh, so I was looking. So back in time, 2013, I have started my sort of change agency journey, and a friend of mine suggests that I set up a blog, and I was like, me, really? But I have nothing to say. And he said, yeah, maybe you should try. And then I liked the challenge, and I thought, maybe, why not? So let's find a name, because I need a website name, a blog name, and I need to register that name. And so I looked for a name that was obviously available, but also that had a verb. I wanted a verb, not just a description, not just a name. And I wanted a sense of collective. So I wanted a we, Not, I wanted something aspirational. So we need, there's something that we are longing for. It's not, it's not yet here. It's not impossible. And actually, I find it a never-ending quest. It's the quest that is interesting. It's not the goal in itself. It's the movement we create together, and we need social because we need connection. We need social business, meaning that connection between companies and customers, between employees and leadership, between functions, etc. We need to society starts at work. We need to create society-friendly work. So that was the reason for the name, and it was free. It was available.
Wonderful. So I want to move on and ask you, what has COVID brought to yourself and to your clients?
I think COVID has shaken assumptions a lot. It has made new things possible. It has also created big expectations, and therefore will create big disillusions. A friend of mine told me the other day, they returned to the office after about a year, a bit more than a year. They returned to the office was open again, and they were so disappointed because they had fantasized this returning to the office and being with colleagues in person again, etc. But what happened was that they were back in their open office plan, where no one speaks to anyone because you should not disturb people from working. Some people who are spending their full day in Zoom calls isolate themselves into a little booth, into little call rooms. There's the social distancing that has to be respected. So in the end, people realized that they were actually much better off at home. So there's this sense of disappointment. It's not the case everywhere, I'm sure, and some serendipitous encounters still make their days. They're very, very happy to meet colleagues in an unexpected way in a corridor. But I think it's tricky. It's a tricky time for organizations. It would be time for them to radically, seriously change the way they work. And you and I have ideas about what they should do. But I'm not sure everyone will go beyond surface solutions, So wait and see. We're available for help.
That's for sure, yes. So what do you think was gained or lost during the COVID crisis? Can it be an opportunity? And if yes, for what?
So what has been lost is this sort of not questioning the way things go, because no other way seems possible. I remember in my former company, there was a strong pushback against the use of the internal social network, which I made central to my practice of change. And I remember having lots and lots of supporters and people who really enjoyed the connections and the opportunities, but I offered by social networks. But I also remember very, very strong pushback. And of course, with COVID, poof, all the pushback disappeared. They hurried up they accelerated the implementation of the social network. Aha! So that's funny. So some of these old assumptions that were not challenged before, like we do not need the social network, were finally challenged. But has it transformed deeply ways people interact and relate to one another? This, I'm not sure. I'm not so sure. But it has definitely created opportunities, because I think people have realized that they were productive even when they were not physically with their boss, that people could be trusted. sometimes even too much. We've seen that people have enormously augmented the number of hours they spend on their work. I think Microsoft calculated it was one day, 8 hours, 8 additional hours per week. That like one full day, which is for the same pay, obviously, but that's crazy, and it's not sustainable. But anyway, it has this kind of realization that people have can be trusted, that there's more than being together physically to form a team. Those kind of things are, I think, opportunities on which we can build, definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. So what should be the number one focus of a typical corporate leader these days? What do you think?
I think a typical corporate leader should focus on creating quality relationships. I think that's the number one enabler. If you have quality relationships in an organization, then people can speak up, they can bring ideas, they can experiment, they can I think, Amy Edmondson speaks about psychological safety, which is a very important aspect of that. It's about removing fear from human relationships at work. It's not a given. There's still a lot of those patterns of domination, submission, humiliation, even, which are extremely toxic. And on the other side, creating quality relationships enable people to work together at improving the system continuously. That's what Edward Deming said many years ago, and we still haven't, I think, listened to fully to his wisdom and applied what he said. It's really about the system working together as a whole to improve the way it works. So that should be the number one focus, I think.
I agree. So let's go into leadership in more depth now. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think are the key leadership traits that leaders need now more than ever before?
That's a great question. Maybe the number one trait that I would put forward is humility. I think we all can agree that some forces that are way beyond our control have enormous impact on the way we do things. And so humility means stepping down from our pedestal as leader and trying to genuinely ask questions, listen to the answers, offering our service as leader. What can I do to help you? Instead of instrumentalizing people so that they contribute to the goal I decide. It's time to and it's not even about servant leadership, which is about shifting the pyramid. It's about doing something else with this pyramid. It's about augmenting it with a network kind of approach, and being an enabler of this network, a real enabler. But it takes some effort and some symbolic sacrifice, maybe. I'm not so confident that this is happening right now. We see that during the COVID crisis, the CEO pay has continued to be disconnected from the average person's pay. Some of these, I mean, many leaders have rolled up their sleeves and have really embraced the disruption with their teams, and that they have been absolutely wonderful, formidable leaders. But others have just been comforted in their worldview that they alone should be saved, and that they deserve it.
I agree with you. Lots of differences have surfaced on the surface in the crisis.
Yeah.
So how should leaders show up in these times? What they need to be as opposed to what they need to do?
Another great question, Vlatka. I think being an enabler rather than steering the wheel is important. Um, and Barry Oshry speaks wonderfully about, has done all this research about seeing systems. So see system sight versus system blindness. And he says we all enter in systems at different positions, either at the top of a system or at the bottom or at the middle, or as a provider or as a supplier. And we tend to adopt reflex behaviors, and we don't even see that. And leaders, when they are appointed as leaders at the head of a system, tend to, and again, it's a, Barry Oshry calls it the dance of blind reflex. They tend to absorb, to suck up responsibility to themselves, because they feel responsible. They feel they've been appointed to that role because they are, knowledgeable, maybe more knowledgeable than the others, and etc. So they tend to suck up responsibility, which can work if there's no problem, but more often than not, there are problems. COVID, whatever, supply chain disruption, you name it, and then they become completely stuck because they are in charge of everything, and that it doesn't work. It can't work. So instead, what leaders should do is inject responsibility in the system, and really create partnership instead of creating an audience of people that you mobilize at the very in the very end of a change journey, when the time comes to implement changes. No, that's too late. They should instead invite people to co-create, which means taking the risk to be changed, to have one's own opinion changed by what the others say or present or express. So injecting responsibility in the system, I think, is being an enabler rather than a wheel steerer, is I think really, really key.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. So I wanted to ask you, would be the few, maybe you mentioned a few things that leaders could do or should do to make a positive difference for their employees?
So I think this is really, it depends on the particular context of organizations, but paying attention, one idea would be to pay attention to what's already there. Where is there energy in the system, and how can leaders support this energy, make it grow, so that it positively contaminates the rest of the organization. So where is there cross-functional and cross-layer energy? Where is there a model of the organization they would like to see? And from there, instead of designing things from the top and then cascading that below, where can they identify various promising opportunities that convey, that carry, that represent the type of cultures that they would. So it's a more organic way, which requires more effort and more time, and because it requires observation and listening, rather than just, this is what we're going to do, which is the simplistic and ineffective type of approach. So instead, and that's why I'm going back to the social networks. That's why I find them so full of opportunities, because by tuning in, by being connected to social networks, leaders open up have more opportunities to catch those, to identify those type of opportunities. They are less filtered by the entourage, the people surrounding those leaders, who prevent leaders from seeing the richness of what really happens in their organizations. So Yeah, I've been saying that for many years already, but really connect to the social network internally, have dialogues instead of just leveraging internal comms, to discuss with employees. Have direct conversation. Yes, it takes time. Yeah, of course, but it doesn't happen on its own, and it's the responsibility of a leader to create an intentional culture. I mean, to not to create, but to make it possible for an intentional culture to grow and flourish.
Wonderful. Thank you. And could you give me some examples of what leaders should do or could do to make a positive difference for an organization? There might be some overlaps in your answer because
Well, yeah,
what they do for employees spreads out
mm,
as a ripple.
yes. Mm. I think it's in the same vein, I would say, being a listener, identifying. Uh, I'll give you a concrete example. Throughout the crisis, the COVID crisis, I mean, it's not yet finished, unfortunately, but throughout what we have already experienced, organizations have been able to adapt wonderfully. How many leaders have organized discussion circles to capitalize, to identify, to celebrate what has happened, to evolve, to use that as a stepping stone for a continuous evolution of the company? How many leaders have done that? I don't know, and I haven't seen a lot of that, frankly. Yeah, there has been some articles in the internal magazine, for example, but so what? Have we use that, leverage that to reflect on our performance management system, for example? Yes, no, I don't think so. All the traditional structures and processes that are used to maintain a certain that convey a certain ideology, that people cannot be trusted, that people only progress because of thanks to rewards, all those kind of um, semantic straitjackets, they're still in place. And I don't know if leaders have really leveraged the potential of transformation that their organizations have demonstrated during the COVID crisis.
That's a great example. And is there any examples that of things that you think leaders should do to help the society? And again, we know how the ripples are spreading, but is anything in particular leaders could do to help everyone beyond their organization boundaries?
Yes, absolutely. I feel there's an immense potential in putting at the service of society the skills and, again, transformation capabilities that their employees have been able to demonstrate. So, for example, I'll give you another example. There was this company that was trying to create a sustainable IT. So information technology consumes a lot of power, etc. It's not great for the environment, and they were trying to create a sustainable IT program. And we reflected together on involving employees and creating a movement around that, etc. What if this company also involved their clients into this approach? Sustainable IT. What can we do together? What can we and bringing what they have learned internally from their employee-driven initiatives, etc., to the outside world, into local communities, for example, where the factory is located, partnering with local schools, local, mayorship, whatever. There are tons of possibilities if you consider that the ecosystem is not limited to the organizational boundaries, but is really um, having the organization as an opportunity to connect people and to reconnect society together.
Yes.
There's a lot of opportunities there.
Absolutely. As Peter Drucker said, organizations should be a force for good for the society. Yeah. Absolutely.
One more wise quote by Peter Drucker.
Yes, definitely. So tell me, Celine, are you optimistic about the future for humanity?
Depends on the days. No, Frank, the real answer is yes, I am, because I can see the younger, I mean, I'm not in the younger generation anymore, but I'm trying my best, and I can see people coming after me. They're trying their best as well. What we need is to provide guide rails, not guide rails, but patterns or possibilities that are that are really making an impact, a positive impact, because it's too easy to and I can see that with lots of young people entering the workforce. After a few years, they get disillusioned and they either leave, quit, and do something else, or just abide by the rules and the norms, and that's a pity. So we really need to try our best to show other possibilities, to show that it's not just a dream, it's not just a book or a fantasy, it's real. There are real, and that's what I loved in your books when you interviewed so many people, showing that there has been real actions, real changes. It's not just a theory. So hopefully with these examples, and we can do things better. Well, but actually we have no choice. We must do things better.
Absolutely, yes. And so, what do we all need to do to make this future bright collectively? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Um, so each and every one of us will answer with their own approach, culture, background, etc. From on my side, I'm trying to resist the temptation of blaming people. And it's hard, because in these times, for example, there's the vaccinated people against the non-vaccinated people shift, and there's all sorts of oppositions, and oppositionality is easy, in fact. Finding people to blame, to express your discontent, finding culprits for a situation. It's easy. But I think change starts with us, and we should refrain from fueling divisions, and instead be the bridge. So how can we be the bridge? And it starts in our personal lives, and on our Twitter feeds, and how can we connect people rather than comfort those who feel they are right versus those who are wrong. I feel it's not healthy, and that's what I'm trying to do. So of course, at times it's difficult, because you really want to take position, on some issues, and some issues, like, I don't know, racism, for example, you need to take a position. It's for sure, obviously. But then how can we see the others not as enemies, but as humans, as potential, brothers and sisters, and they too want change. So how can we do things together?
Wonderful. I would say even at the humanity level, we need level 4 or 5 consciousness.
Absolutely.
And with that comes unity and acceptance and compassion and love for one another, and all that. And then we can co-create this better new world that is emerging.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any final remarks or tips for leaders?
My final remark would be work more with women. there is this is a huge untapped potential in organizations. There's an amazing number of women of talent, and it doesn't mean that men are less talented, not at all, but we should like really strive to bring more diversity, and not bring women because we have to, or because there's the rules or mathematical constraints, or it's not that. It's really bringing more perspectives, more different perspectives on challenges and ways to overcome them. So I don't understand how is it still a problem to have more or less as many men than women in organizations at all levels. I hope this will change by changing the way leadership is displayed, and the way, because leadership in many cases is not appealing to women. It's not it's not a problem of finding enough talented women. It's just that they just don't want that kind of leadership. It's not great. But if we change leadership, if we change the way it is displayed, exercised, etc., I think this will make it more appealing to more people, and we need that. We need that.
Absolutely agree with you, because with level 4-5 leadership, the traits such as communities and compassion and unity and social connections, it comes a little bit more natural to women, although men can do it as well. So completely agree. Thank you. And finally, as you may know, we have launched our membership level 2 for our managership community, and this interview will be provided there as well. Do you have any suggestions what else could be provided for maximum value and the biggest impact, for the biggest ripples?
I would say, based on my appeal for connections and for and we need social, I would say making it possible for people to connect, maybe, and connecting, one-on-one, having quality conversations, maybe with people they don't know of, or having a way of creating those quality conversations possible. I think that's great. That would be a great opportunity. You see, the social horizons of people has sometimes shrunk because of the crisis, and offering an opportunity to connect with new people, to expand again our horizons based on common interests and common purpose. I think this is fabulous. So long live the community. And
wonderful, wonderful. And we are working on this as well. There is a functionality we discovered. We're just creating it now so that our members can use this and do exactly what you mentioned, connect one-to-one or with the groups, all driven by common purpose to create those ripples of change for the better world. Thank you so much, Celine. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you, Vlatka. Thank you for the opportunity, and keep writing great books. Huh? Okay.
Thank you, Celine. And I can't wait to see your book in the making as well. So finally, could you tell us anything about that? Do you have a title?
Sure, I have a title. So I hope this title will be retained. My title is Liberty, Equality, Fraternity, Embracing the Revolutionary Potential of Leadership.
Well, you cannot expect anything less from a French lady with all your background. Thank you so much, and best of luck.
Thank you, Vlatka. Thank you very much.